Today on the farm we're planting roses. So all of these roses were just delivered to us bare root from Weeks Roses in California. The first step is to soak them so that they can get nice and hydrated. So these have been soaking actually overnight in these tubs of just plain water. They come to us bunched in 5, so after we soak them we want to release them from these strings that tie them up. Then we're going to take all the tags off because we know what they are. These are all the same. They're all Coco Loco roses. And now we're ready to get them planted. The only area on our property that is fenced is this one garden. So these are 8-foot tall fences. We have really high deer pressure in our area and the deers love the roses. So we want to do everything we can to protect them. The first thing that we're going to do is make sure that the soil is prepped for them. Roses are pretty heavy feeders, so this soil has been being worked and amended for about 6 years now, so it's a pretty good tilth and we really are happy with it, but we want to add some extra in for the roses. So what this is well composted horse manure. A lot of different manures will work just fine. Just make sure that they're nice and composted. We're going to individually amend each hole before we plant them, and then we're going to add a half cup of bone meal and blood meal to each hole and then plant the roses. So we've amended all the holes by adding that compost, adding the blood meal and the bone meal. We added about a half cup into each hole. And most importantly with the compost is we just were able to mix it in and really incorporate it with the native soil. That'll help with root growth, it'll help with water drainage, and it'll help with overall nutrient availability for the plants in the long term. So we're gonna get started planting now. So this is my bare root rose. You can see that the roots have been trimmed for me and they're kind of in like this upside down martini glass shape. So what we want to do is make just like a little, I think they call it a volcano, like an area to set the roots on that'll essentially allow them to splay out and get really good soil contact. And then I'm just going to fill back in and kind of shimmy my fingers down into the soil to make sure that I'm getting that good soil contact with the roots. So it's a little bit hard to see once we get to planting what the appropriate depth is to plant them, so I just wanted to pull one aside before we plant it and show you. So you can see where the roots are coming out of the crown right here, and then you can see this is the graft junction between the rootstock and the rose. So you don't want to plant them deep enough that the graft is underground, but you want to make sure that all the roots are covered. So you can see this kind of lighter area here is where it was planted before. So we're going to go ahead and plant to about that depth. After we finished planting the last roses, we laid down 3-foot weed mat in the paths to help with weed control, as well as irrigation, 2 lines of drip tape on each of the beds. The last thing we're going to do today is mulch them. Then we're going to get them really well watered in and kind of step back and let nature take its course. We're going to turn the camera back on throughout the summer a couple of times and just show you the progress. So this is the rose garden. Again, this is the beginning of June. So we planted these in the end of February, so a few months. And this is what it looks like. It's just starting to flush for the first flush. So a lot of the stems are not super long, but they're pretty gorgeous. So this rose has been really fun to watch as it's progressed opening, because they start this really kind of pink, like lipstick pink color. And then as they open more, they shift and become this almost muted brown color. It's very reminiscent of coffee, like very, very well creamed coffee. And ultimately, once the flower is completely open, there's the slightest lavender hue to it. So you can have one flower and enjoy it through all of those stages. It's really a neat thing to watch. For this first season, this first flush, we're going to be pretty easy on the roses. We're gonna deadhead everything that needs to be deadheaded, and we're gonna cut some stems for sale, but then we're gonna go through and fertilize everything, get them growing nice and strong to produce a second flush later in the summer. So we had every intention of getting the video camera back out into the roses over the summer, and things just didn't work out as far as that goes because we were so busy around the farm. But I'm happy to report that we did end up getting not only a second flush out of these, but a third flush later in the fall. So the roses worked really hard for us this year, and we're in the process of putting them to bed for the winter. So I thought I would bring the camera back out and show you exactly what that means. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do with this is I'm gonna cut the branches back quite a ways so that I can see what's going on. What I'm looking for is I'm looking for outward facing buds. So you can see right here in the crotch of this leaf node, there's an outward facing bud. So I'm gonna cut it just above that, angled out. That way next year when this starts to leaf out, that branch is gonna shoot outward and help to open up the center crown of the rose. So as I'm doing that, I'm noticing that there's some dead growth in here, and I wanna make sure to cut all of that out. Help open up that center, and there's no reason to have those dead branches in there. These ones that are coming into the center, I'm gonna go ahead and just cut them completely out because I don't want them to start crossing and making a mess in the center of that plant. All right, so I've got it kind of cleaned up to the point where I want it. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure to get as much of the foliage off as possible, and then another important thing is to get all of the foliage cleaned up from underneath and around the plant. That helps to just clean up that potential for disease and keep the ground nice and tidy. Another thing that we do is between roses, we use a little sanitizing wipe with our pruners. Just in case we have some sort of issue on one rose, we don't want to move it to the next rose. But that's about where we're going to leave it at, with a nice open center and some outward facing buds. All right, so another thing that we're going to do, if you'll notice, the soil's settled in quite a bit from when we planted them this spring, and our mulch has decomposed to a point where we're going to reapply it. We're going to go ahead and reapply just about to right around where the graft is. If you're in a really cold climate, you might want to mulch up around that graft just to give it a little bit of extra protection. So we'll do that after we've got everything else pruned and come through and mulch them nice and heavy for the winter. So in recapping our year with the roses here at Raindrop, we planted 120 roses at the beginning of March, end of February. We planted all Coco Locos. We only lost 2. Those 118 remaining roses produced just about 2,000 sellable stems for us over the course of the season. We started harvesting beginning of June, and we ended just around the middle of October when the frost really came and took everything out. We were really happy with how everything went. We certainly hope that this video was helpful to you if you're either putting in roses, have roses, just like watching videos about roses. And we'll be putting in some more roses over the course of the next few seasons, so you can watch for that. In the meantime, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them and we'll try to get back to you, and we really appreciate you checking out our videos. We'll see you next time. Like, can you tell what this is? Does it look like a real hot dog resting up against my shoulder?
I think you're okay.
Okay, tell me when we're recording.
We're recording.
Oh, good. Okay.